Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Julia Duchesne and I work with Yukon Government Community Services. Welcome to our first seasonal briefing for the media and thank you so much for joining us today. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. Please keep your mic muted if you're on Zoom, unless you're asking a question. This briefing is being recorded and will be made available on YouTube. If we have any problems with like Zoom spammers or the meeting is compromised in any way, we'll just end the meeting and restart it. So just rejoin when that happens or if that happens. And we'll be hearing from 3 speakers today and then taking questions at the end with 1 question, 1 follow-up question per outlet. So today, first, we'll be hearing from the Minister of Community Services, Richard Mostyn. We'll also hear a short briefing from Devin Bailey, Director of Wildland Fire Management, and Greg Blackjack, Director of the Emergency Measures Organization for Yukon Government. We'll be sharing the early season information about flood and wildfire outlook, some reminders about preparedness, and what we've been working on this winter and spring. In April, we will be hosting a second media briefing once the spring flood risk assessment has been released based on the April 1 snow survey. This will provide a more detailed outlook for floods and wildfires with forecasters present to answer questions. We'll also be talking more then about wildfire preparedness for 2025. So without further ado, Minister Richard Mostyn.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be joining you today on the sunny and clear traditional territories of the Kwalin First Nation, the Tonquach Council. As you just heard, we're here to provide the first seasonal briefing of the year from the Government of Yukon and our emergency professionals here. Emergency preparedness is a absolute top priority for our government. As we all know, it's a shared responsibility. It's not only our government, there's responsibility that lies with the federal government, with municipal governments and First Nations, and with individuals across the territory. I'll be talking a little bit about that in the coming minutes. Last summer, we began providing regular briefings for the First Nation municipal leaders on emergency management. We had our that includes floods, wildfires, and emerging issues. We started that practice again this year. I had my first meeting with municipal officials on Friday. This is part of our commitment to supporting Yukon communities in emergency management. And I'm glad to see members of the media here today for our first briefing of the year. So thanks very much for your interest. It's important, and I'm glad you're here. I want to start by saying what we're doing for emergency preparedness in the Yukon. Across many government departments and agencies, we support First Nation governments and municipalities in preparing for emergency events. The Yukon government works with local governments to review and update emergency plans, community wildfire preparedness plans, and generally ensure that Yukoners are thinking ahead and ready to work together. It's important to note this because it's the municipalities and First Nations who know their communities best of all, and that's why they lead the charge on those things. And we're there to help refine, and if they have any questions or things they'd like to work through, we're certainly there to support. Yukon government is also responsible for emergency planning in unincorporated communities such as Marsh Lake and the Klondike Valley, and our government also offers assistance if emergency has become too big for one municipality or a First Nation to handle. So we're there to backstop these communities in the event that they get overwhelmed by the emergency that's coming. This also includes emergency support services such as transport for evacuees, congregate shelters, and other services. And we also work closely with all governments involved to ensure a coordinated approach. So we're not. It's important that we're consistent and working as a team and not going off rogue on one another. So it's also very important to have that coordinated approach. This is a complex field and a complex undertaking often that needs to be grounded in the unique circumstances of each community. All these events are in some ways like fingerprints. You can prepare, but when they actually hit, we don't know the specifics about the wind. There's so many variables in these events. So you really have to work together to ensure that all the connections, the synapses, as I call them, the communication channels and the procedures are well known to everybody before we're in the throes of an emergency. In 2024, emergency measures planners worked with their management partners in 22 of the Yukon's 27 municipalities, First Nations, and local area councils. We appreciate the efforts of First Nations and municipal government leaders in planning for emergencies and to manage the challenges that emergency situations present. For example, take power outages. Our government has been working internally and with partners to improve and test the interagency emergency protocols in case of electrical supply challenges in the Yukon. This is relatively new to have the utilities working with us, and we're very glad to have them on board. That's a huge change, and it's nice to see. Last fall, all parties came together to develop and test the emergency protocols and successfully completed a drill to switch large buildings in Whitehorse to back up power to reduce the load on the electrical system and keep power flowing to all Yukoners. Government of Yukon continues to lead the development of official flood hazard maps for 14 high-risk communities. Maps for the Southern Lakes area and Carmacks have already been completed. These flood maps are a critical tool that help the public at all levels of government adapt to climate change, reduce flood risk, and make informed decisions. We're also continuing our work with the City of Whitehorse and various response partners in planning tabletop exercises related to wildland and urban interface fire scenarios. Our government continues to invest in community hazard reduction and landscape level fuel reduction for wildfires. In some ways, we're leading the world in this. That's not to grow complacent, but we have to acknowledge that we are working at the forefront of the nation and in some cases in the international community to do this work on behalf of Yukoners. We're committed to creating strong wildfire resilient Yukon communities. It's very important work, and I look forward to sharing more about this in the coming weeks. Before I pass it over to our officials, I'll take a minute to talk about the importance of personal preparedness for Yukoners. As I said earlier, it's everybody's responsibility. We all have roles to play. No matter the emergency, you need to have an emergency plan and an emergency kit, and it's best to get these ready before you need them. We've been talking about this now for at least the last probably 2 years. We're now seeing Europe doing the same thing. Europe is now stepping forward and asking their citizens to have the 72-hour kit and start preparing for emergencies as they happen. This is a global phenomenon. It's an acknowledgement that we all have a part to play when it comes to emergency preparedness. You should have the kit. Look around your house. Make sure that you know the possessions you want to take in the event you're asked to leave quickly. So identify those precious things you want to make sure are preserved, and do that ahead of time. Make sure you have some cash on hand. Keep your trucks and cars fueled up. Have all those preparedness pieces. Also, fire smart your property. Go around, make sure there aren't make sure all the twigs and grasses are moved away from your wooden decks, and make sure your house has some clear areas. Just be present and start looking at your home to try to prepare yourself for the emergencies that could happen around here. And doing so will take some of the pressure off our first responders when and if a fire happens. They will not have to worry about your property so much. They'll actually be able to deal with the very real pressures they face fighting the fire. So I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind. And I think that just about does it. So with that, I'm now going to turn it over to the two folks we've got with us who are experts in this field, so Devin Bailey and Greg Blackjack, and I'll take any questions at the end if you have any for me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Minister Mostyn. My name is Devin Bailey. I'm the Director of Yukon Wildland Fire Management. I'm here to say a few words about the wildfire outlook and weather outlook for this season. And it's here. Wildfire season officially begins tomorrow. That's April 1st. And while it's too early to predict the entirety of the upcoming season, current information modeling suggests seasonally normal temperatures and precipitation. Heading into April, which is generally our driest month here in the Yukon, we are on pace for a historically average snow-free date. That's when most of the snow in the forest is melted. We anticipate starting the season with low fire danger across much of the territory. April 1st also marks the legal start of wildfire season, which means Yukoners must follow summer burning rules until September 30th. Burning rules are in place whether there's snow on the ground or not. In the Yukon, you're legally required to get permission to light an open fire between April 1st and September 30th for any other purpose than a campfire. This includes burning grass or debris or brush in a burn barrel, and burning on all public and private lands. To get permission, people must call their local wildland fire management base. Burning is only allowed when fire danger is low. If you live in Dawson, Whitehorse, or Watson Lake, or any other municipality, you may need to check permission from your local government. For additional information on burn permits, please visit yukon.ca. As fire season begins, Government of Yukon is providing more information on our wildfire hub. This year, the fire danger map will show any current fire restrictions for every part of the Yukon. It will also show some of the wildfire mitigation work that we've been completing on a dedicated page. So again, you can check that out at yukon.ca. And as the minister points out, wildfire prevention is everyone's responsibility. Never leave a fire unattended and always keep tools nearby to extinguish it. Extinguish any fires you do light completely. And when you are done with your campfire, soak it with water, stir it with a stick, and repeat that process until the coals are cold. Well, that's all for me today, but Wildland Fire will have more information about how we've been preparing and are prepared for the upcoming season ahead, and have a longer-term outlook on expected weather forecasts at the mid-April briefing. I'll also be here to answer any of your burning questions after we finish speaking, and I will now pass it off to my colleague from Emergency Measures Organization, Greg Blackjack.
Thanks, Devin and Minister Mostyn. I'm Greg Blackjack. I'm the Director of Emergency Measures Organization for Yukon Government, EMO. EMO coordinates Yukon's preparedness, response, and recovery for all major emergencies. And today I'm going to provide an overview of how we're preparing for this upcoming season. I'll start with government preparedness. As you know, each municipal government and First Nation government is responsible for having an emergency plan. This winter, EMO emergency planners reached out to municipal and First Nation governments, and we've been working together to update community emergency plans and conduct training and tabletop exercises to test those plans and our staff. We try to ensure our emergency planners are present when exercises and planning sessions occur in the communities with our partners. Sometimes this work is done through contractors, and we want to ensure our planners are there to keep consistent how our legislation and our emergency plans work together. I'd like to share some examples of what we've been up to. Our planners have attended meetings in Tagish, Mount Lorne, and Marsh Lake earlier this month, and we've attended emergency planning in Faro last week, which included a stop in Ross River, and we're taking part in emergency planning exercises in Whitehorse this week with the City of Whitehorse, Kwalndun First Nation, and Tonquichan Council. We also have a planner up in Dawson right now who's working on our joint flood preparedness work with the City of Dawson and Trondequichin First Nation. Later in April and May, we've been invited to Watson Lake. And as the minister said, we visited 22 communities and local governments in 2024 to build up these relationships and to test these plans. Within Yukon government, we've set up online training for our employees and training tabletop exercises. Through the organizational development branch, Yukon government employees can sign up for this training and for the exercises. We've opened up this online training to our partner governments, municipalities, and First Nations. If they contact Emergency Measures Organization, we can provide a link to this training. This helps us expand our pool of trained responders within our Yukon government, so can help support the work in the ECC. Moving on, when there's no above average snowpack or a higher flood potential in specific communities in the spring, we reach out to those communities to work on their plans. We did this last year for the Klondike and Porcupine Rivers, and we're doing it again this year in Dawson and the Klondike Valley. This work includes pre-positioning our resources like sandbags and sandbag machines and other materials for flood response and mitigation needs should they be required. We have a good supply of flood response materials in our warehouse here in Whitehorse, but also already located around the Yukon at different camps. If flooding occurs, we'll be working closely with local governments and partner agencies in unorganized areas to help keep Yukoners safe and minimize the impacts to our critical infrastructure. And we've begun our regular briefings for local governments as we did last year, and that'll continue through the spring and summer. In addition to briefing governments directly, we are hosting media briefings and a follow-up in April on the seasonal flood and fire outlook to help share this information with Yukoners, and we'll continue to update media directly about emerging incidents and wildfires of note. Emergency info can always be found online at www.yukon.ca/emergencies, where you'll find links to the Wildfire Hub, Flood Hub, 511, and any other emergency information. And Yukoners can also follow us on Facebook, Yukon Protective Services, or contact the Fire Information Officer at 867-393-7415. We'll be sharing more about these information resources at the next briefing. Now looking ahead to the spring, the April 1 snow survey typically captures our peak snowpack. Spring and summer flood risks are assessed in April following this survey. This flood risk assessment will be shared publicly, and we'll be back with water resources to brief the media and public about it in mid-April. For now, the March snow survey told us that the snowpack ranges from below average in the Southern Lakes region to above average in the Klondike. Most regions can expect slightly below average to average freshet runoff volumes this spring, while the Klondike can expect above average freshet flows. I should note that the amount of snow on the land is only one risk factor for high flows, water levels, and flooding. They're important drivers for spring flooding, especially the weather, which affects how quickly that snow melts and the amount of spring rain. And we prepare for flooding regardless of the snowpack. And again, a reminder of personal preparedness. Yukoners have an important role in preparing their homes and properties for flooding and wildfires. This spring, we'll be having an emergency preparedness campaign, which will run in April and May, including radio, print, and social media ads, leading into National Emergency Preparedness Week, the first week of May. And we'll be testing our Alert Ready system that week as part of Emergency Preparedness Week. We'll share information to help Yukoners prepare themselves and their families for emergencies, including putting together a 72-hour kit, creating an emergency plan, and tips on protecting your property. Yukoners can always visit preparedyukon.ca anytime for guidelines on building a kit and making a plan. And our Yukon government emergency preparedness booklets are available through EMO and also through local governments in the communities. Overall, I can say that we're confident, we're prepared for this response season, and we'll continue to work with our partners in all municipalities and First Nations to ensure they feel prepared and they feel they have enough supplies on hand for spring melt. And look forward to sharing more informed update in mid-April. Thank you.
Any final remarks there?
No, thanks. Just thanks to both Greg and to Devin for those updates. And yeah, as Greg said, we've done an awful lot of work to prepare again for this season. We've learned from previous seasons, and we'll continue to assess how the previous seasons went. So it's continual improvement here, but we're going to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you so much to all three of our speakers today. We're going to now go to media questions, starting with the folks in the room, and then we'll move to the Zoom reporters. Excuse me. So the way this is going to work is you feel free to address a question to any official or just to throw out a question, and then if you're not sure the best person to answer it, they can decide amongst themselves. We'll be starting with CBC, and then we'll be moving to the Yukon News and the Rush. And we're going to do one question and one follow-up question per reporter. Yeah. And so, yeah, CBC, take it away.
Oh, okay. So pretty much everybody referenced a more detailed outlook in mid-April, which is just a couple of weeks from now. Can you share what more you will know in mid-April that maybe you don't know yet, and where that more detailed outlook will come from?
I can speak for Wildland Fire, and so for us, basically, we do watch the snowpack and the way things are melting. Weather forecasting is only accurate for a short amount of time. Anything longer than that is based on weather models that can change. So for Wildland Fire, we'll just have a better idea of when those snow-free days are going to be and what the short-term temperature and weather outlook is. So that's from a Wildland Fire perspective.
This right now is the busiest time of year for Water Resources Branch. They're out on the land gathering all the data that they need to give us accurate snowpack readings and water levels. So their office is out doing the physical work right now, and when they get back, they provide us a more accurate report.
So as Devin said earlier, I mean, tomorrow is actually the beginning of our fire season. As early as that seems, given the amount of snow we have on the ground, that is, so that's why we're having this today. But as both gentlemen have said, we have we have very important data points coming from the hydrology folks, and that'll give us a good idea about flood risk and everything else. That's the last data points, and as I believe it was Greg said, it's those April readings that are the most important for flood assessments, and those are coming. So we haven't got that data yet, but being on the cusp of fire season, as improbable as that may seem at the moment, it is something we've got to turn our minds to.
Do you have a follow-up question, Gabrielle? Sure. Or Sarah? Okay, sure.
It seems like we're having an early thaw. Is that having an impact on the outlook as of right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, the weather in the Yukon is definitely unpredictable, and it does seem like we're having a beautiful spring. So from a wildland fire management perspective, it's pretty much business as usual. It's making sure that we have all the personnel in place who are trained and all the equipment we need ready. So it's business as usual, and whether or not we actually start to get fires in the beginning of May or at the end of May, wildland fire management will be prepared regardless of what the weather does in April.
As Devin said, it's pretty much all up to the weather right now. April usually historically is a pretty dry month, but if we get a lot of moisture in April, it can definitely change our outlooks.
Thanks. I'm going to move to the reporters on Zoom now. So we'll start with the news. 2 questions for the news, and then moving on to the rush. And we'll just, please unmute yourself and ask the question, and then we'll just confirm that we can hear you in the room here.
All right, Dana from Yukon News.
Yep, you're coming through loud and clear.
Which communities are you reaching out to now in the Dawson area? And can you elaborate more on what that preparation looks like? Question for Greg.
Thank you. We have a City of Dawson Emergency Management Working Group, and that brings together all of our responders up in the Klondike Valley area. So the people at the table for this training and review of plans will include Trondequitchin First Nation, City of Dawson, Klondike Valley Fire Department, Aviation Branch out at the airport, our wildland fire guys in the community, and any of our federal partners as well. The RCMP are always involved, Parks Canada. Yes, I believe we also have the search and rescue and the rangers as well. Any responders in that area will have been invited to that training.
Okay, a second question or a follow-up question from Dana?
Sure, thank you. I'm wondering, how have you been working to get even better at consistent, timely interagency and public communications that meets the needs? You talked a lot about communication, but how have you made sure it's been getting better even?
That's a good question. Communications is always a factor in almost all after-action reports, but we've done a lot to build our relationships between our comms departments with all of our critical infrastructure partners, municipal partners, First Nation government partners. Whenever we move into an incident, we make sure our comms teams are aligned to ensure everyone's getting consistent messaging across the board. We've also developed a 24-hour comms duty roster to help assist our EMO duty officer. So getting info out to the public is done in as timely and efficient manner as we can.
If I may just add to that as well. It's a very good question. As Greg points out, communication is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to an emergency response. And a lot of it is through building relationship and ensuring that roles and responsibilities are clear and concise and understood. Within Yukon government, we're working closely with Health and Social Services, Highways and Public Works, all justice to ensure that when an emergency does occur, we all know what our roles are, and we all know that it's a government priority to support an effective response. We're also holding bi-weekly and, if needed, weekly meetings with mayors, councils, First Nations leaders to keep them informed about the current situation and just be as transparent as possible about what a response looks like and what the risks are. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and the better we can communicate and know our roles, the better off we'll be.
Yeah, and just to complete to complete the mix, we've got, just last week I had a call with all First Nation community leaders. I'm having one with the media today. We have the website, which has much more robust information on it. We are having tabletop exercises where we have pulled together much closer relations with many of our partners in this field, including the utilities, which we didn't have before. We've got Starlink services up across the territory now to help with that. And to individuals' responsibility, there are people out there who are don't have robust community communication channels. They also have the capacity now to get tapped into services such as Starlink, that if they're really worried about it, they can actually take some personal responsibility and subscribe to that, so they're not as isolated as they may have been in the past. And these are all changes that have happened. So we're continuing to assess these all of our channels and trying to make them a little bit more robust.
Okay, thank you. It's only 11:30. Oh, Rush. Yes, sorry. I don't have the Zoom screen right in front of me. Okay, so we're going to hear two questions from the Rush now. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions from Nathan in the Rush, so I'll go background. Well, yeah, one more question per outlet, if that works. Cheryl or Gabrielle?
All 5 people in the room. Turn my mic on. What about Oh, you're recording it. Okay, there you go. And maybe we can talk more about this after. And I'm sorry I missed the first 10 minutes, but you talked a lot about interagency and making communications better. And I'd just like to talk a little bit more about the media and staying plugged in and being really informed and the 24-hour roster. And can we get access to that? What improvements do you see on sharing communication and information to the media that will be on duty throughout the summer?
That's a great question. So we rely on our media partners to help us spread word and get information out as quickly as possible. So we put out regular bulletins and hold daily sit reps or send out daily sit reps. So I just really want to say that we value the work that you do, but I think at the end of the day, Julia from Comms is better suited to answer that question. Sorry to throw you under the bus.
If
Go,
anybody else
I
wants to
haven't-
comment on it, go
I
for it, and
haven't,
then
I'm
can-
not, I'll let you, Julia, as our comms lead to actually handle that type of thing from that.
Yeah, so when it comes to emergency comms, especially during this sort of spring and summer response season, I'd say that two of the main resources that we have available are our fire information officers, who are available not 24/7, but they're available during sort of active burn periods, so that which varies depending on the fire danger. So my first recommendation would be getting in touch with them at yukonfireinfo@yukon.ca, or their phone number, which is the 3937415 number. And they're able to tell you everything that you should need to know about what the fires are doing. And then we have a similar role within the Emergency Coordination Center when it's activated, called the Information Officer, and that is also a publicly available phone number. It's not active all the time, only when the ECC is activated to like a level 2 or above. But if you are looking to get in touch with EMO to ask about an emergency and you're not sure if the ECC is activated or not, the EMO duty officer is a publicly available phone number who can put you right in touch with the information officer. And that's 24/7, 365. So that would be my recommendation. And then also we, depending on how activated we are, we release emergency information to the Yukon media list and on yukon.ca/emergencies as they're unfolding. So, yeah. But yeah, also we're, as EMO, we're undertaking outreach to the different radio stations specifically in town, and I have been doing that for the past couple years, and just making sure that those relationships are strong and that we've got those after hours like response protocols shared, so that work is ongoing. But it's important, it's a small town, but it's best that we don't have to go and knock on the reporter's door when the telecoms are down. So yeah,
Exactly what I'm thinking about. So, I mean, the protocol is fine and the emails and the cell number, but like the communications outage and like in Yellowknife, when we saw when, emergencies actually happening, we sometimes need to get a hold of people face-to-face, in person. So maybe we can talk a little bit more just about planning and contact and when the threat level goes up, how we do that. Because I think if we'd waited for official communication around the comms outage, hours would have gone by. So just specifically around when it gets really intense, what are we doing? What are the expectations? The plan for that.
Agreed. Yeah, we love
Okay.
having those shared protocols, and that's work
talk
that's
more.
ongoing to different levels with
Yeah.
the different radio stations at the moment.
Okay.
So. And Greg.
Thanks. I just wanted to add a little bit to that. One of the key pieces to your personal emergency kit is a wind-up radio or a battery-powered radio with extra batteries. During our comms outage, we really appreciated our local broadcasts putting out our emergency info. And a lot of Yukoners still live in remote, disconnected locations, so putting stuff out on the radio is key at those critical times.
And with staffing, kind of the technical end of things in mind, we are hearing rumblings that fire crews are kind of expecting August to potentially be pretty hot. So for us staffing, are you thinking that one part of the summer is potentially looking like it could be hotter than others, or you just don't know at this point? Those are just rumors, like in terms of us staffing up on this end of things for emergency preparedness.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say that those are just rumors at this point. We should be prepared and anticipate a hot June, July, and August, and we'll be ready for it. That being said, it may not be.
It's pretty hard. Yeah, those are just rumors at this stage. Like, I think you just have to, the weather forecasting, as good as it's gotten, is still only about, what, 5 to 7 days is really all we're looking at. And that's going to be the big determinant coming into those things. So you'll know at the time, and I really do appreciate CBC volunteering to work evenings and weekends throughout the summer so that we're constantly in contact. That's really great to hear they're going to do that. I encourage you to reach out to our team there and get addresses and phone numbers and stuff so we can make it easier. That's another one of those synapses that's important to hear, so that's great.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there a final question from the news?
My colleague was wondering about potentially a roundup of projects that are aimed at mitigating flooding around major infrastructure. Is that something that you might have handy?
We don't have that handy, but there's a lot of work going on across the territory. We've certainly invested in tiger dams and other things that we put in place, and I'm sure that our team here can reach out and get you some of the material we've got distributed across the territory in anticipation of flood season.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And yeah, you've heard it from pretty much everybody here already, but we really appreciate your role in keeping Yukoners up to date and informed about emergency preparedness and emergency incidents throughout the season. So thank you for being here. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you throughout the summer. And have a great day, everyone.